welcome to the Citizen channel, our regular feature, our History Boys feature. Yeah, we're going to go back to November 1962. I was around, I can't remember much about it, more of that in a moment. We're going to look at City versus Everton, yeah, a visit of the Toffees, of course, to Main Road in the November 1962 for a League Division 1 game in what was to become a bit of a painful season for us at City, but more of that later. Personally, as I said, at the age of 3, I was still about 3 seasons away from visiting our wonderful Main Road ground. So, yeah, forgive me if I don't know any too. I can have too much personal opinions to this one, if you can forgive me for that. Les McDowall, of course, had been in charge of City since 1950-51 season, and this would sadly be his last season in charge. Away from football in November 1962, and you know I like to have a look at what's going on. John Charnley, probably not a name you remember, makes the world's first successful whole hip replacement operation. Becomes very routine now, hasn't it? At Wrightington Hospital in Wigan. There you go. And the very first episode, even my quiz, that was the week that was. Well, yes, the very first episode of the actual original, the influential satire show, that was the week that was. It was shortly to be broadcast towards the middle to the end of November on BBC TV. And an agreement, yes, an agreement. We don't get many of these, do we, with these guys? But an agreement between France and Britain to develop the Concorde supersonic airliner. In music, yeah, Lovesick Blues. Lovesick Blues, there's an appropriate name, by Frank Ifield, would replace Telstar by the Tornadoes at the UK #1 on the charts. And at the cinema, yeah, I went to watch this with my dad, probably a little bit older. You did get these films on year after year in those days. It wasn't like now. I did go and watch Lawrence of Arabia, but obviously this year was when this was big at the cinema. Lawrence Arabia and The Longest Day as well was also quite popular at the cinema. And £1 in 1962, well, it would be worth a massive £18.30p now. So that's not bad, is it? But if you look at prices, you look at the City programme, yeah, it was sixpence, 2.5p in old money. Well, new money. Sixpence in old money, 2.5p in new money. Yeah, but others did range between 4pence. There was a few programmes that season at 4pence, but ours was at the top end at 6pence, unfortunately. Come on, City, what are you doing? Trying to rip us off? Who knows? Anyway, back to City again and the visit of Everton. City sat 15th out of 22 in the First Division. We'd played 15 games, won 4, drawn 5 and lost 6 on 13 points. Everton were doing pretty well. They sat second on the same points as Tottenham, as Spurs, with 22 points, and still had a game in hand on them, so they were doing very, very well. City, though, as we can see from them stats, a bit of an indifferent start. We'd lost our first game, for instance, 8-1. 8-1 at Wolverhampton Wanderers. Nothing to do with Middlesbrough, this one, at Molineux. That was shocking, our first game of the season away at Wolves. And we've been humiliated just a couple of months before at Main Road as well. We're humiliated. This is both these games against West Ham back in this season. I've got a little vlog out there if you want to watch that or suffer that. I try and make light of it as best we can. But yeah, West Ham had humiliated us at Main Road a couple of months before this game, beating us 6-1. There you go, which they also did at their place at the end of the season, but we'll talk briefly about that in a moment. So things for City, we're not going exactly to plan at Main Road, although away from home we'd sort of tightened up things. We had a new plan. We had obviously the bit of consternation. Every time City did something a little bit different, all the media called it a plan. You know, remember the Don Revie plan, the Revie plan from a few years previously. Well, we sort of the last game away at Burnley, because we dropped our left winger a little bit more defensively. All of a sudden it became a plan. It became another plan, but obviously it was just a tactic for that particular game. But hey, there you go. Not unlike the press jumping on City every opportunity they get, is it? But yeah, our last 5 away games, we've actually won 1 and drawn 4. So we're doing okay at home. It was a little bit of our home form was letting us down. In goal, of course, Troutman, he hadn't quite finished at City, but he was getting towards the end now of his career, and Harry Dowd played the majority of the games this season. Everton, going on to Everton, they'd finished 4th the previous season to champions Ipswich. Yeah, Ipswich Town had won it the previous season under the guidance, Everton now under the guidance of Harry Catterick for his second full season in charge. And 4th was actually the highest they'd ever finished post the Second World War. So he appeared to be doing a very good job. And their record at Goodison was excellent. It become a little bit of a fortress for Everton, but it appeared that away from home, it was holding them back a little bit from claiming perhaps a major honour. So perhaps we'll be able to take advantage of that, or perhaps they'd improve, who knows. They did arrive at Main Road just 3 days after a trip up to Dunfermline in Scotland. Yeah, they'd been playing in the Intercity Fairs Cup, and they just played Dunfermline on the 31st of October, Halloween, and it turned into a bit of a horror for them, as they did lose 2-0, but obviously they beat Dunfermline 1-0 at Goodison, so they actually went out at the Intercity Fairs Cup 2-1. On aggregate, it was a good crowd for City. We'll talk about the crowd later for that season, but it was a good crowd. Obviously, probably boosted by a few people coming down the East Lancs, of course. 40,336 were there that day. The Beswick Prize Band. Yeah, I think they used to play at Old Trafford as well, so they weren't very loyal. Weren't very loyal to either club, but there you go. The Beswick Prize Band were on the pitch, giving the pre-match entertainment and probably half-time as well. But I wasn't around, guys. I didn't go and see that, but I'm sure they were there when I was going as well. So that was the entertainment. So the starting lineups, for City, this was the lineup: Harry Dowd, Bill Levers, John Benson, Cliff Sear, Bob Kennedy, Alan Oakes, Alec Harley, George Hannah, Joe Hayes, Peter Dobing, and Neil Young. Yeah, that was the City lineup for Everton. Yeah, a couple of names that I can remember. Most I don't, but to be honest with you. Yeah, they had Gordon West in goal, one of my little goalie heroes, I think, as a kid, to be honest with you. A bit like Tommy Lawrence at Liverpool. I used to quite like him when I was a youngster as well. Gordon West, Brian LeBone, Mick Megan, Alec Parker, Brian Harris, Jimmy Gabriel, Ray Veal, Dennis Stevens, John Morrissey, Alex Young, and Frank Wignall. Billy Bingham actually was a sort of a player with Everton at that time. He also, of course, went on to manage them, but he didn't actually feature in this day. Peter Dobbin, as far as the game was concerned, actually put City ahead in this game. He'd actually scored 32 goals in 94 games for City. Peter Dobbing, whichever way you put it. I would prefer Dobing, whether I'm right in that, I'm not too sure. He put City ahead, but Frank Wignall, the guy we just mentioned previously, equalised for Everton. That was his last game as well, strangely enough. He was actually transferred the season after to Nottingham Forest, Frank Wignall of Everton, but he scored 15 goals in 33 games for Everton. So the game ended 1-1, and it still left City in 15th spot in Division 1. But of course, we had to come to that season off the pitch elements that affected it as well. It didn't just affect us, but we had what was called the Big Freeze of 1962. Yeah, one of the coldest winters on record here in the UK, and it reached the UK on just before Christmas on the 22nd December. Started in Scotland, as it probably will always do with cold weather, and just worked its way south. And the Arctic weather didn't relent until March 1963. So as you can imagine, gains were few and far between. And sadly, although it wasn't just City affected, of course, we just never really allowed City to get going and get in a run together. Obviously, we were, as a northern team, we probably suffered more than others. But we just couldn't do it. And by the last home game, the penultimate game of the season, of course, a draw with United was absolutely a waste of time for City. We needed to beat them, perhaps to send them down. But obviously, a draw was no good to us, and of course, as I mentioned before, our last game was unfortunately at Upton Park, and we were slaughtered 6-1 again, so that led to City unfortunately being relegated. So the weather, of course, had sort of put paid to our hopes. As I say, we can't just blame that, because obviously it was for everybody, but obviously we just couldn't get going for whatever the reason. And the weather and the performances took its toll on the crowd as well. There was a good crowd for this Everton game, but the crowds at Main Road that season were quite low compared to what they had been recently. We averaged just 24,567, which was very, very low by our normal standards, in all fairness. But it would also see the end of Les McDowall's 13, unlucky for some, season reign as manager. He'd won the FA Cup with City, of course, back in 56, and of course his first season had won promotion up to the first division from the second division, but it brought about, very briefly, only for about a season and a half, season and 2/3, something like that, George Poyser took over the reins for the next season. As far as Everton, well, yeah, they would beat us at their place the following March at 2-1. And yes, their away form must have improved slightly because the old Dark Blues, the old Toffees, claimed the league title, yeah, for the 6th time. Not bad going, that, Everton, for the 6th time in their history that season. And of course, their big competitors were Spurs, and they actually finished 6 points clear of Spurs by the season. And it was 2 points for a win, don't forget, in those days. Harry Catterick himself, obviously, and became an Everton legend. But he sadly suffered from a severe heart attack in early 1972, and by April '73, he'd stood down due to ill health to take on a non-executive role at Everton. But he'd added another league title during the '69-70 season. And also, of course, won the FA Cup with Everton for the 1965-66 season. So there you go. Everton did okay, didn't they? So there you go. Thanks for joining me for this little look back at in and around that game and things that affected it and the season as a whole, obviously, for this History Boys feature at Main Road on November the 3rd, 1962, that finished Manchester City 1, Everton 1. Thanks for joining me. What have we got to do the rest of the day? Have a great one. Look after yourselves, look after your friends, look after your families. More important, let's all look after each other. So we meet here again on the Citizen channel. Or perhaps have a look at my film and TV channel. If you want to have a little break from football, have a look on there. Try and inform and entertain. But whatever it is, if it's on there or back on here on the Citizen channel, I only ask one thing, don't I, guys? Please, stay safe, Blues. Come on, City. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.